Hang 'em High, 1968. This was my first viewing. It just never appealed to me before. I'm not a massive Clint Eastwood fan. The problem for me is I read this book by Patrick McGilligan, and for some reason this guy wrote a whole entire thick book all about what a piece of crap Clint Eastwood is. This author does not like Clint Eastwood. And the thing he points out the most is that Clint Eastwood is a terrible, lazy filmmaker. Not only the movies Clint Eastwood directed, but the movies he starred in are just such half-arsed, lazy, poorly made, crude films. The quality of the filmmaking is just really quite poor. And I agree, once you've read that information, film after film, about how much they were just rushed through, and you then watch the movies and it's right there on screen. Clint Eastwood is a multi-Oscar winner for directing. I think he's won Best Picture maybe more than once. The guy is super successful and critics love his work, and it is baffling because as charismatic and as good a star and screen presence as Clint Eastwood is, his films are just really, really, really crudely made. And Hang 'em High is a very crudely made movie with no technique, no style. It's just a standard issue Clint Eastwood movie. This is 1968, when he probably didn't have all that much power in comparison to later on. He was not quite a star at this point. He was getting there, he was popular, but he wasn't Clint Eastwood movie star quite yet. The $3 trilogy, I think, was taking its time to go from being popular movies to becoming legendary movies. So, but this really does just represent what all his movies are like. And Clint Eastwood did not direct this. Someone called Ted Post, who I believe was a TV director, and this was his third movie. And I think he went on to make one of the Dirty Harry movies as well. I think The Enforcer, no, the second one, whatever that one's called. This movie just is very crude. Just like every other Clint Eastwood movie, it's just poorly filmed, no style, no technique. The pacing is a bit ponderous, it plods. The action in this is really poor and unsatisfying. Although I think that's more 1968 thing. I don't know when fight choreography became good, but certainly in 1968, gunfights and punch-ups were just really poorly filmed. And this just has really weak action. And the movie grinds to an absolute halt whenever women are on screen. There is a romantic subplot shoehorned in, and it is so tedious and uninteresting and pointless that I ended up fast forwarding through it at times 6 speed to get rid of it because I did not care. It's just, look, it was perfectly watchable. I have seen worse movies. This was, to me, a very standard issue Clint Eastwood movie. It does what I expect a Clint Eastwood movie to do, which is to plod, have crude, rickety filmmaking, and just be very, very average or below average. I mean, Clint Eastwood, he just rushed through his films. He seemed to just get bored. You can just feel it's an early draft script that could do with more rewrite. I'm talking about in general. not necessarily this movie, although I think all this does actually apply to this movie. But in my opinion, and many, and as is pretty much depicted in this book, a lot of Clint Eastwood's movies are just, they feel like first drafts that need more work, and the production is rushed through. They turn up, they point the cameras at the action, they do one or two takes, they rush through it, get it done as quickly as possible, and as depicted in this book, Clint Eastwood, halfway through production, loses interest, and his work goes from being crude but, I guess, competent, and then just becomes really lazy. Oh, it'll do, we'll fix it in the edit, that kind of attitude. And he just sort of ends up rushing through the movies as quickly as possible. Pale Rider in that book, and it said that they had like another 2 weeks of filming, and Clint Eastwood just couldn't be bothered. He had totally lost interest, and he just rushed through it. So like the last 2 weeks of filming was completed in 1 week because he just wanted out the town. So I'm not a massive Clint Eastwood fan. Unforgiven is the one time in which he slowed down and really took the time and effort to make a good movie. I've not seen Unforgiven in something like 20 years, so I have no opinion to give on that movie in particular. But the point is, he makes really crude movies, very lazy, very half-arsed. He's won Oscars and all the rest of it, but I just find his movies to be not good. Full of weird editing, languid plodding pacing. You know, it's like, the first draft is, well, an early draft, it needs more work, gets filmed. He then rushes through the production just doing one or two takes. Very simple camera work, nothing too interesting on that front. And then in the edit, you just get the feeling that that's the first rough edit. And so weird edits and mistakes are left in, and the pace is left a bit bloated. I mean, The Gauntlet is a great example. I mean, when the cops are shooting into the house, there's a million shots of the bullets going into the house, and it's just over the top. And you look at that and you think to yourself, why didn't you cut a few of those shots out so it's not so ridiculous? Anyway, it's just half-arsed, lazy, rushed through, and that's how I feel about Hang 'em High. And this movie has a very plodding pace in places because the scenes with the women are just pointless and boring, and the set piece hanging of the 6 men is really drawn out way too far and just becomes a bit ponderous. So it's not a movie I really care for. I would give it 4 out of 10. It was watchable and not without merit as a standard issue, straightforward Clint Eastwood starring western, but it was certainly no masterpiece. I was not particularly entertained by it. If the thing delivered decent action sequences from time to time, I would like it a lot more, but the action is just very crude and lazy and not well done and unsatisfying. I have to say, I have no idea why Hang 'em High has an 18 certificate. It definitely is not ultra violent. It does not earn that 18 certificate nowadays. I have to assume it was probably given that certificate back in the 80s or something, because nowadays it's more like a 12 or even a PG.